G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video for, largely for the new shooter. I suppose there's a bit of information for everyone, but largely for the new shooter and making decisions about the firearm you're about to get. What would it start with? Listen, it would start with, probably pretty close to the beginning of the equation, left-handed or right-handed. And that is something that I think a lot of people look at firearms as just an extension of other things they do. So whether they're a left-handed or right-handed writer, left-handed, right-handed with the cricket bat or the baseball bat or the throwing arm or the golf club or whatever it is, then because you're left-handed or right-handed in that equation, makes you left-handed, right-handed in this equation. By the way, this is my little hunting rig, pest control rig. Makes you left-handed, right-handed in that equation. And I'm here to tell you, no, that's not what makes you left-handed or right-handed when it comes to shooting. When it comes to shooting, there are things that do make you left-handed or right-handed. One is familiarity with firearms. So if you've always been left-handed and you've done everything else and you got there, then okay, that's who you are. That's what you do. But I would say that in actual fact, your eyes can make a difference. So the eye that you're sighting with, and keep in mind, it's certainly in the precision world at least, with scopes you can adjust sort of things to do with that. You can use glasses if you need to do that. You can do all sorts of bits. So your eyes, but they can be, if your left eye is the only one that's going to do this, then okay, that makes you a left-handed shooter. But largely if your right eye is going to be able to do the job, then when it comes down to your dexterity, so how your hands work, how your body works, and how even your brain thinks and all sorts of other things, no, you don't need to do that. And the reason I would say that is there's nothing wrong with being a left-hand shooter, except you've just taken out 95% of the firearms that you could use. 95% at least, if not more, but 95% of the firearms are right-handed. So in second-hand options, in new options, in types of actions, in types of rifles and things you can buy, right-handed is the vast majority. So, and that is a little bit for that reason too, is the fact that it's, like I said, it's not because you write with your right hand that you're a right-hand shooter. So, of all the details I can go through that, and when you're looking at that side of things, if you've only just got into it, at least get out and try. See what you like using your right hand. It is familiarity, it is learning those bits and pieces, but finger control is really easy to do on both hands. And that's probably the only bit, short of shoulder damage or something that's weird going on here, or like I said, there's an eye, the right eye doesn't work at all, your right eye can't focus or something like that, and okay, that's moving into where your left eye's got to be the one, so you're a left-hand shooter. But if you've got options, I would suggest go with right hand, at least try it before you buy, because right hand in the future will give you so many more options. So something to consider. The next detail I want to go into is, I suppose it goes into cartridge selection, and it is a little, listen, there's lots of complexities and nuances and details involved. I never get too close to those sort of details, do a few little comparisons and bits and pieces and try and explain stuff. It's largely powder and bullet weight is where the amount of powder gives you the amount of power, and the bullet and the efficiencies you can get the bullet in, that sort of stuff, different options is the crude level of it. There's the marketing level of it, where the new one is the best one. Keep in mind that there is some nice little innovations, and more than anything, the new cartridges are simply taking, or I suppose the two advantages they have. One is they have souped them up a little bit. So they've pushed the lands forward, or they've done bits and pieces in the factory chambering. Doesn't mean you can't do that in an old factory chambering, but off the shelf they're done in that fashion. And the bullets you can buy, the rounds you can buy, tend to be set up with heavier bullets and nicer bits and pieces for more long range stuff. But really what they're up to is they're trying to sell another firearm. You've already got one of these and one of these. We've got this one, it's a new one, it's the best one, so we want to sell it. Really, it's more sales, it's more marketing you're listening to. Now there is an advantage to some of the new stuff, and that advantage is if it's picked up enough by the market, then there's lots of new firearms in lots of different brands, so you've got choices there, and there's good supplies of ammunition on the shelf. That doesn't always happen because they're pushing it really hard on the internet or on the magazine or whatever it is. Doesn't mean it's in the stores, but if it's there, there might be some options to it. As said, you can take some of the old cartridges and with slight little modifications to whether it's pushing the lens forward or little bits with the chambering or with hand loading the projectiles, take the round to exactly the same performance levels or close to or better than. And then a lot of cases you'll find there's a lot more choices. It is, and like I said, we've done some videos on trying to make comparisons and that side of things there. But my real comment is it really comes into research as to making sense of what sort of thing suits your area, suits what you want to do, and then trying to make sense of doing things. There is some advantages in an ego sense of you take an old round and make it perform as well as the best of the new kids on the block. Well, you got some kudos to go with that. And then some cases you just want to have the brand new one, and so you want to have the one that's all the best one, all the things that all the magazines said, or all the YouTube articles said. Keep in mind with the new ones, there's sales involved, and the biggest detail, which is, listen, that's different folks for different strokes. The biggest thing I would say with the new ones is not all of them stay popular, not all of them work, not all of them can you get the stuff with it. So having the new one, if you can't buy ammunition for it, that's not really a win. Anyway, that's got its own bits and pieces, whether you go into custom loading or what you want to do your research. And in that research would also involve a very important detail of this is go and talk to the people doing what you want to do. There's always someone doing what you want to do. And that might not be in your area, that might need more long distance research, but largely for most people it'll be a competition, it'll be hunting, it'll be game that you're trying to shoot, trying to hunt, it'll be pest control, it'll be something you're trying to do. So largely, if you don't know the people, maybe the gun stores, the ammunition supply, they know the people. All you're really after is some ideas, some clues to go down that road. You go and buy this cartridge because you thought it was a good idea, and then find out it has these problems here. Generally, you talk to people later on and someone's going to say, yeah, no, I found the same problem, so I went to this option here. So in the world of buying more firearms, trying more things, that can be a nice little path to figure it out for yourself. But if you really want to know the place, that the people, the way you're going to find out is the people doing what you want to do. Certainly when it comes to competition, that's a very important thing to go and figure out first, to go and have a talk, go and have a look at what people are doing. And rules, competition when it goes into clubs, and that's even if it's not competition, you are just shooting at your local range, find out what the rules are. Muzzle brake suppressors, very important details of whether they're allowed or not allowed, all that side of things, and very important in the way of making your choices. There's no point going and get yourself a 3.3 out of Pua and going to a range where you're not allowed to shoot a muzzle brake at. Well, it's doable, but it's not very pleasant. It doesn't work very nicely. And don't consider the rules like no muzzle brakes allowed as the club being ornery about things. That'll be because of space, because of noise. The moment you shoot a muzzle brake inside an enclosed shooting shed, there's a lot more noise. The moment someone's standing alongside with a muzzle brake, even a nice one like our muzzle brakes, which are very good for the shooter and for the spotter, they're not so good for the people just outside that zone of silence. Not really, but that are just over the other side. You're getting a good smack full of air. So it's unpleasant. And why do you want to have one guy that's making it unpleasant for everybody else? And the moment you get a rifle alongside with a muzzle brake, well, it's unpleasant on you. So those rules are for logical reasons. The moment you're out and about, then that changes things, and that tends to change what caliber and cartridge you can use as well. So even when it comes into the extreme long range stuff that we do, like what we do, your ground conditions, your actual areas you can shoot at, all relevant, but talking to people that do what you want to do, or then doing the research down the people that specifically do what you want to do on the internet can actually help in that situation. But you are largely going to still be factoring the fact of your conditions are your conditions. So listen, that's just some A basic help, I suppose, I wanted to point out. One of the other details I wanted to go back to when I'm talking old versus new cartridges, one of the comments I hear quite regularly is picking on an old mate of mine, which would be the 300 Win Mag. Well, 300 Win Mag, the 7mm Rim Mag, the 375 H&H, and all the various cartridges have this belt on the back of it. Now this belt, I suppose for the first 8-10 years of shooting a 300 Win Mag, I had never really considered it. I didn't bother with it. It was a belt of Magnum, and I heard some negatives, and really because of I never ran into them. The reason why I didn't run into them is the belted Magnum, yes, designed a long while ago, it's designed to be used different than I use it. What it's designed for is, it's not a belt to actually make it stronger down the back there. It's actually designed for the headspace side of things. For a quick explanation to people, in something like a rimmed cartridge, like your 4570 or your rimfires, everyone would have seen one of those, a 22 long rifle rimfire cartridge. The way that's headspaced is that bump on the end, that rim, there's a little recess that bump goes into, and then the bolt face comes up behind that. So that is where that little recess point pushes against the rim, the bolt face comes up here, that's the headspace. That's what stops the round from moving around in there and controls it, is by that little piece there. In a normal cartridge, this is the 300 PRC, modern cartridge, bottleneck cartridge, rimless cartridge, the way these headspace is on this shoulder point, at the front there. So the round comes up, pushes against there, and the bolt face goes up here. That is your headspace. Whether it's tight, it's pushing, or you've got 5 thou of headspace, or whatever it is, that headspace is from there to there, from back here to the front of the shoulder. So that's how this one was designed, the rimless cartridge. The belted cartridge was a peculiar design nowadays to think about it, but the way it was designed was really because this came out of more of a straight cartridge, so it wasn't bottleneck, is where this belt first came from. So the cartridge just went straight down, but rather than, because it is rimless in design but has a belt, where the head spacing was from the edge of this belt to the bolt face. That's how it was designed to be. Designed for a straight cartridge, so it didn't have a shoulder to push on it. But then we started to modify it lots of years ago and turn into a bottleneck. But they were still designed with this belt down the back here, so set up in a factory sense to headspace down here. The reason I didn't have any of the weird issues to go with that is I didn't ever headspace them like that. I didn't set them up. I didn't reload them like that. I set them up to headspace to the shoulder. So they worked like a normal bottleneck rimless cartridge. Bolt face and shoulder. Because of that, well, I think it's because of that, certainly what I found is I didn't find any issues with belts, with bulges or different bits and pieces going around the belt, because I was never using the belt as the headspace, I was using the shoulder as the headspace. So that's the nature of those, and I suppose what I'm really saying with that is always do your research, consider all the information that's going on, but just because something's old or it's belted or it's said to be something, the 260 Remington's another one that is a great cartridge, really very, 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 very similar to the 6.5 Creedmoor, and yet the 6.5 Creedmoor took over with all the gusto in the world because of sales. It's still a very good cartridge, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing wrong with the old 260 Remington if you set it up properly too. And I suppose that conversation, that could go on all day with all the different nuances and details that go with that side of things. My real comment is do the research. The biggest thing to consider, apart from getting the right performance and finding out the locals think it's a good round, that sort of stuff, is also that you can get it in whatever form you want. If you want to shoot it off the shelf in a completely factory configuration and don't want to mess with it whatsoever, then yeah, some of the new ones probably are going to be set up a little better for the precision shooting, in the target shooting, and some of the older ones may well be set up better for the hunting side of things because it was where the market and where things were really designed more. But you keep in mind that all of them, without too much tweaking, can be turned into what you want to. And to me, for the type of person I am and the way I like the industry to operate, having a relationship with a gunship, with a gunsmith, and making things a little bit more yours makes you a little better in the way of what your effort you're putting into it, in my opinion at least. I suppose I shouldn't go too much into my opinion. You do what suits you. You like to buy that off the shelf, you want to have it there, you've got good supply, then do it. It's going to do it well, but it comes down to your research and making sense of things. So my overall of all that, left hand, right hand, make sense of that properly first. It's not because of your right hand working better, more to do with your eye and also to do with making sure you've made sense of it properly, but a lot more choices in the right hand world. Cartridge selection and all the different options there really comes into research. Make sense of it. Don't just believe the hype, the sales, that side of things, but don't discredit it completely either. Make sense of it properly to suit you. I mean, other than that, in the precision and all that sort of stuff, yes, there's lots of videos we have to attach down that sort of stuff. All rounds can be made extremely precise. There isn't a more accurate round by the nature of the round. It might be more efficient, it might travel through the air a little better, but in a real sense, most of the gang are about the same place, so it's a little bit of energy. You know, like I said, it's about what you can get and what you're trying to do with it. But what's more accurate than the other, it's a conversation that really is much more about the man that's got the finger on the trigger and how he does things, seconded by the rifle setup. The cartridge, listen, they're all very similar. There's just efficiencies that we're talking about there. Anyway, guys, listen, I hope that's worth something to someone. I'm glad you checked in anyway, and thanks for that, and we'll catch you next time.